What's the status, Hunter?
It appears to be a sort of roly-poly bear.
That's not what I asked for. I asked the status.
Oh, the roly-poly bear? Paralysis.
Wait, that's not it. Does he have two statuses?
Right, soiled.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, welcome one and all to your regular refresher course on some forgotten elements of the series. Or, statuses, I guess. Though I suppose statuses are one of the elements of the series. Of course, we still have a lot of statuses actively within the games. The hunters can use blast, poison, paralysis, sleep, and technically stun against the monsters. Monsters have a number of more unique ones that they use against us, the hunters. But over the years of the series progressing, some statuses have been introduced, and as time has passed, the games have moved past those statuses. So let's talk about said statuses of a bygone era, and whether or not they are likely to return, or even if they should return, in Sunbreak or in the future of the series as a whole. A very recent, prominent, notable example of this is the fatigue status. I bet a lot of you are saying, the fatigue status? What the heck is that? Yeah, the fatigue status. This was a debuff originally added to this series to be applied by Chameleos' spit attack in the second generation. It drops your stamina down to a measly little 1 bar and blocks use of stamina regen items for a bit too. Obviously, this is a massive detriment as it makes moving hard, and the only way through it is the energy drink, or I guess an ancient potion as well. A weaker version of this status was also applied by Tetsukabra and Celtis Queen in Monster Hunter 4, which only temporarily reduced stamina. In Monster Hunter Rise, Chameleos returned to the series with a bang, and without his fatigue-inducing spit. The spit is still there, it just doesn't make you tired anymore. This is far from the only status absent from the current entry to the Monster Hunter series though, but it is one that is prominent, as a monster heavily related to it is just in the game. As far as if I'd want it back as a player, no, not really. Fatigue sounds like hell to actually play through. I'm a big fan of having stamina. Stamina is my friend, and the concept of going down to 1 bar of stamina forcefully throughout the hunt, even if it is a punishment for getting hit by an attack, that sounds terrifying to me. I firmly believe that there are ways to make things hard in this series without removing control from the player, and stamina being limited like that is absolutely making things hard by removing your ability to dodge effectively. That said, I am always open to a rework of the debuff because there's nothing wrong with the concept of spit that makes you somewhat tired. That is a very lizardy attack and I can get behind it. As well, it is relatively likely that Tetsukabra will be in Sunbreak due to them teasing him as a baby for all of Rise, and this would be the next opportunity to rework and re-add this status. For anyone wondering the likelihood of statuses like this returning in the future, consider that Rise itself reintroduced both the soiled status for Volvidon, where he farts on you.
No, babe.
Which makes you unable to use most items while effective, and the webbed status of Raknikadaki, which used to be in Nursilla. This roots you to the place, unable to move, spamming buttons to get out faster. The series is always willing to reach into its bag of prior tricks, prior game mechanics, and bring them back. They don't always stick to the same formula of said mechanics when they return, but they definitely are inspired by them. One that is notably absent in Rise specifically is Bleed. Bleed is pretty common in the series, and even Rise has Nargacuga, who did apply Bleed in Iceborne, but does not apply Bleed in Rise. In that way, Bleed is sort of weirdly absent. However, upon talking with Josh about this concept, he did tell me, without spoiling things much, that Bleed will almost definitely be coming back in the Sunbreak expansion, though I don't know why. So that solves one nice and tidy. The rest get a bit more abstract and a bit more interesting as well in their effects. Snowman. This one is a bit special. For those who haven't played a Monster Hunter game prior to the 5th generation, Snowman is a debuff that encases you in a ball of snow. You can still move slowly and you can roll, but you can't attack or use items other than the cleanser. Other ways to remove this debuff include having your friend punch you in the face, so there's that as well. I absolutely adore this debuff. I know that I said that I don't like things that remove control, but this has so many more layers than just removing control, you know? It's absolutely hilarious. Unfortunately, in the old games, this effect was applied by Barioth, Kushala Daora, Tigrex, Lagombi, all of which have been in a 5th generation game, almost all of which have been in 2 5th generation games, had 2 reimaginings. Neither of those, and none of these iterations of them, have had the Snowman status within these 5th generation games. By said metric, Snowman is almost definitely a dead status now. The fact that they have brought back this many monsters who used to apply the debuff without bringing back the debuff itself means that it probably won't come back. Alternatively, it could have been removed as a generally applicable thing by so many different monsters, because when they do want to bring it back, they want it to mean something and be a more exclusive debuff to only a couple of monsters. At least that's my hope, because again, I really like Snowman. On which note, I did mention Tetsukabra being likely for Sunbreak earlier. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that Zamtrios is relatively likely as well, because of the little shark babies on the Frost Islands. Zamtrios used to cause Snowman, and is also a monster I could believe to be in possession of a much rarer, more unique, modern Snowman debuff, as he has an attack where he fires out literal chunky balls of snow into the sky and lets them rain down upon your face. As well, this one isn't necessarily for Sunbreak itself, but Gammoth is bound to return to the series at some point soon, at least with how quickly that they've redone 2 of the Fated 4 members already, and she too is one that I could see this mechanic being attached to once again. In the same vein as this, there was a nearly identical status called Muddy, which did pretty much the same thing except it was mud instead of snow. This effect is also gone from monsters that have returned who used to have it. In Monster Hunter Frontier, there was an effect called Extreme Paralysis, used by Zenith monsters, which started off like regular paralysis. But then, after you get up, you will occasionally just get flinched for a while, interrupting actions of any kind. Thematically, I adore this as a way to realize paralysis, but I can't imagine it being very enjoyable to be shocked out of an action that you're in the middle of. As long as there is a reasonably accessible item, though, that counters this attack, I am down to see it return on a monster that really leans hard into paralysis as a concept. I think that could be quite a lot of fun. Then we have the single game status of Confusion, which was introduced in Monster Hunter Generations with Malfestio, the crazy, beautiful owl creature. This effect totally reverses your movement controls. Left is right, forward is back, exactly how it sounds on the tin, and it was, well, confusing. It lived up to the name extremely well, and it was a fun little debuff that was actually pretty hard to train yourself to deal with properly. It was a status that you could actually power against with practice and knowledge, though, instead of just straight up requiring an item, like sleep, for example. I love that. Confusion was special for this specific thing in my mind. I would love more like this status in the future. This is on the same level as if there was a monster who just absorbed all of the light out of an entire room, so you couldn't see, and you had to track them through sounds or something like that. It completely changes the way that the game feels in your hands, but you can adjust to it. You can learn, you can adapt and overcome it without being, oh, I forgot to bring a nullberry, guess I'm screwed. I get that the lore of hunting is all about preparation, and that's why status removing items are so iconic in the series, but I love this status specifically because you can skill your way out of the negatives. I would love for this status to return, for Malfestio to return, or for it to be given to a new creature as well, just because it's really fun to me. Sorry if you disagree though. Finally, this one is sort of cheating, but Life Drain. The little debuff that you get while a baby Zamite is attached to you in Rise for the most recent example, but this goes back quite a bit in the series as a whole. This debuff represents a small monster being attached to you, leeching blood out of you until you roll enough times to kick them off, or if they decide that they're full and jump off themselves. The debuff very slowly drains out your health, and, well, you may be saying, this isn't Rise. What I am talking about isn't Rise, and this video is about statuses that aren't. Well, yeah. But I think that this could come into Sunbreak in a whole new form. Look, this is a bit out there, but the new flagship monster for Sunbreak is incredibly vampire-inspired. Everyone agrees on that from the base up, and one of the things that vampires are most known for is, well, sucking blood, drinking blood. Might as well put it in a cup, because they want it. What better way to represent that in a Monster Hunter game in a monster than to give it a large monster version of this life drain effect that some small monsters get? How it could be represented specifically, I don't know. Obviously the whole monster won't be latched onto your arm by his teeth as you roll to fling him off, but maybe he could have some sort of ranged life drain effect using his dragon energy or something. I don't know. This status just got me thinking a little bit, that's all. Of course, there are even more statuses in the series itself than the ones that I've mentioned today. Nakarkos, for example, technically has 2 unique statuses, mucus and then ossified. Mucus makes you sticky, then when you roll over a bone patch with mucus on you, you become ossified, which is essentially just the bone aesthetic version of the Snowman debuff. But those debuffs have an insanely low chance of returning to the series. After all, they were tied to a unique zone created for one single monster. There are a couple more like this that are super unique that I didn't mention as well, but these are all the particularly interesting forgotten status debuffs that have a chance of returning in the Monster Hunter series, in my eyes. The ones I think have a chance of coming back, the ones that I'd love to return to the series, and the ones that maybe I don't want to see all that much as well, at least not in the same form as they were before. Do you find any of these statuses particularly interesting to play around with yourself? Are there any statuses that you are sad that I didn't talk about? Or even any status that has maybe never been in the series that you could talk yourself into being brought in? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.